Okay, we're in business. We're on Daf Beis Amud Aleph. We're in the third line from the bottom. Achumla Fanenechta Fanenechta. See that third line from the bottom? I'm really afraid we finished in half an hour. It's embarrassing. Achumla. No, I just today didn't have time to prepare. I'm prepared to do blah, but that's it. By you, sorry, I read it wrong. By yoim, v'nechtam by yoim. He has to say, the shliach has to say that the get was signed, written during the day, and signed during the day. Achiyoma nechtav lishma, and to say that it's written, that was written for her sake, v'nechtam for his sake and for her sake, and that it was signed for his sake and for her sake as well. Now, this lishma business that is in the Bavli, but the concept of hayoim that was written during the day is not in the Bavli, and the Achronim asked a question on the Tzin Yerushalmi that the truth is, the halacha is that a get doesn't have to be written during the day. A get can be written at night. It can't be given over at night, but it can be written during the night. So the question is, why are they saying it? So 2 points. First of all, the Mashbiach proves to me again that the Yerushalmi sheet is different than the Bavli sheet. The Bavli sheet is that you have to, the whole issue is only Lishma. The Yerushalmi has other issues involved. But the second question is why they have to say by Yoim that's written during the day. It doesn't have to be written during the day. So here in the Tzin Yerushalmi it says, look at the Avnei Miluim. I looked in the Avnei Miluim. Miluim is the Ketzoy Sefer on Evan as a Simcha of Zayin, Simcha and Zayin, and I was not satisfied with what he said there. He didn't really give it a good answer. He said that you're right, but Yoim doesn't make or break the get, but it's necessary to know for other purposes, such as when she loses payros and things like that, and they have to pay attention what day was written in order to know what date it was written. Not really the day that it was during the day, but for the date. But I'm not so happy with that. The Mashbiach tentatively proposes, although I'm not sure even if this is his intent, but that perhaps the Bayoim is a mistake, and it's afraid of some other type of dikduk in the get, which actually they have to be meticulous to observe that it actually took place properly. Okay, Lamais, I don't know, but whether that's correct or not correct, but be that as may, we see that there are other issues which Yerushalmi is concerned with.
Basting has to mean by Yom.
Yeah, but the get doesn't have to be written by Basting. Our custom is to write a get in Basting, but it's not necessary to write a get in Basting. So the Sefer can write a get, by himself.
So Yerushalmi wouldn't necessarily be...
Right. A get doesn't require a Basting. A basin sustains a get. A get by per se does not require a basin. Okay? We do it nowadays in basin, but it's not necessary. Okay? Bokum Rabbi Yochanan. That's for Rabbi Yochanan. Now there are all many interpretations here, but some which are very original. But I think the most interpretation is the most partial interpretation, which makes sense. He says here that we're in Eretz Yisrael, and we see a get in front of us from Eretz Yisrael, but it has in it goyish names like Chves, Yasser, or Chafez, So.
Well, actually, if I may interject something, there's this book. I forgot his name. Land of Israel and something, whatever it is. I forgot this guy. He used to teach at Hebrew, and he does have a discussion about the names that were more common during this period of time, during the time of Yerushalmi.
Yeah.
He says people were changing their names to more Roman-sounding names.
That's what he says? Okay, that's interesting. Obviously not your Rabbi Yochanan's time, as you will see presently. So you have to recognize the names, and we assume that the names are legitimate names. Who's going to sign goyim on a get, right? Armalon, so he said, Akum Lokin, the stinking Akum. Lokin means they deserve malchus, right? Or they're afflicted or something like that. But it's some sort of derogatory name. The stinking goyim l'chasume aleim. They're signing them. And you want to say, well, maybe we should check it out. They have goyish names, right? So if they have goyish names, how could we assume that they're Jewish, that the get is valid get? Masnisim Messiah Rabbi Yochanan. The following Bryce is a bride for Rabbi Yochanan says, call a Gittin Aboyim Medina Sayom, Gittin which come from Chutz La'aretz. Afal Pi Sheshmosim Kashem Akum, even though the names inside are goyish names, Harei Luksherim, they're kosher. In other words, you can find names like Chveis, Robert, or Joel, or something like that, on these Gittin. Harei Luksherim, they're kosher. They should social b'chutzlarts shmoisim kashem akum. Jews and chutzlarts, they have goyish names. In fact, you can find the Gemara, right? The Moroim and Bavel have Babylonian names, many of them, right? At least we don't know, names like Ashi don't strike as particularly Jewish-sounding names. So therefore, we would assume that the get which goes to chutzlar signed by with goyish names is a kosher get, as opposed to get written Eretz Yisrael with goyish names. So said Lo Amar Shebechutzlar. That's what the Gemara says. Lo Amar El Shebechutzlar. It's Eretz Yisrael Lo. Only because chutzlar it's not if it's in Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Maikadun. So now, what do you do if you have a get in Eretz Yisrael which has goyish name signed on it? How do you know that they're Jews? So Rabbi Yoshan Avasi said a very interesting word here. Achichtom emokom Yehudaiki. Yehudaiki, I guess, is like a JCC. In other words, it has to be written on the get that this is written at the Jewish center, right? As it comes to the word Judaic, right? So that's written that it comes from the Jewish center in the community. And in Ancient Yudaiki, if the city doesn't have a JCC, then the Beis HaKnesses. Then it should say that the get was written in the shul. You see, an interesting thing, that the gathering place, whatever this Yudaiki was a superior location to Beis HaKnesses. Now, I know the name Moshe says here that Yudaiki means a based-in. But it's a very... What? Yeah, so it's a very far-fetched thing, though, in my opinion, to say that it means a based-in. I don't know. They should have said then based-in.
Confirm what I said before.
So what?
That's why it has to be written in daytime.
Why? Because it has to be written in the based-in. Well, I guess maybe that. Yeah, but the thing is that a get in Eretz Yisrael, I'm saying funny nechtam, comes from region to region Eretz Yisrael. So I'm not sure if that would be the case. But anyway, it's a strange concept, that a strange word, Yudaiki. In ancient basic Knesset, so there's not Yudaiki, it's written in a shul. If ancient basic Knesset, no basic Knesset, Mitzvah v'Sorban, you got to gather 10 people together and say, we wrote this get in front of 10 Jews. Okay? Because I guess a minyan indicates that they're all Jews, the concept of minyan. Rabbi Amram says, fascinating thing, he says, it's easier to get witnesses to testify that these are Jewish witnesses who signed the document for little time for Sorban Adam, and not to try and get 10 people together. It's a fascinating concept. I don't know exactly what the social conditions were, but it's hard to get 10 people together. So it's easier to just rely on the signatures being verified sometime later by Basin.
The Romans may have prevented them.
Maybe that was dangerous. What?
Very impressive. It was a very difficult time.
Uh-huh.
So, actually really difficult.
Okay. Well, I assume that this was more a problem in the south of Israel, though, because it seems in the north they didn't have that many problems. This in the in Tzipori and its area, they seem to be okay. It seems probably you get kind from Yehuda. Maikadun. So if that's the case, what do you do in a case where there's no Yudaiki, no Beis HaKnesses and no 10 people. I feel b'chanusa Yisrael. Even if you write in a Jewish store, it's good enough. You go to Gus's Pickles, Kol Tu. Kol Tu. And you say this guy was written in Kol Tu. What? Gus's Pickles, yeah. And that's good. What if the guy didn't say, and here again, according to Mashbiach, you'd have to change the girsa, and that's why it's difficult to do. What if a guy didn't say, Nichta Bayom and Nechtam Bayom, Nechtam Lishma and Nechtam Lishma? Well, he didn't say the proper Fanei Nechtam and Fanei Nechtam. Now, it's interesting, in the Bavli, I didn't really pay attention to this when I was preparing, but in the Bavli, in fact, it says you don't say, that's not part of your statement, Bayom and Lishma. You just say Fanei Nechtam and Fanei Nechtam. It sounds from Yerushalmi, though, it's a more elaborate statement you have to make, right? You have to say, in fact, the Bayom and Lishma is part of a statement. So what happens if he forgot to say it? So it says the Gemara, Neymar Mar Deshoyel Amora. Let us say that which you asked has already been stated. Amura, it really should be here. It's already been stated. Amalei Vaida. So he said, which one? Where has it been said? The Rav Chisda said, I say Gita v'nosnu law. If they brought a get and gave it to her, v'lo my law b'fanei nechtam b'fanei nechtam. They didn't say b'fanei nechtam b'fanei nechtam. Such a case, asa uvda, kama yikum Rabbi Yochanan. Such a case came in front of Rabbi Yochanan. V'amar lo, and he said, to Naomi, man, take to get back from her, v'emor lo, and say to her b'fnei shnai in front of two people, b'fanei nechtam b'fanei nechtam. In other words, just do it over again. Okay? So you can do over the ceremony. Says my Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Lazar, to top of, page 5, Gimel. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon, I don't have a Gimel there. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Lazar. The Rabbi Shimon Lazar, Mar, Eino get, ad yomer lo b'shas matana shugitech. It seems to be Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Lazar says, the woman has to be aware that she's accepting a get. Right? Which is not, we don't actually pass them that way. We're going to have it later in the Masechta. We don't actually pass it that way, but it seems that Rabbi Yochanan is like Rabbi Shimon Lazar, that she has to be aware that she's receiving a get. Says more no, Rabbi Yochanan Ruba means Rabbi Shimon Lazar. Says you're Yeva, but it should be Ruba. It's greater Chiddush Rabbi Shimon Lazar. Because Rabbi Shimon Lazar, Rabbi Shimon Lazar, does not Rabbi Shimon Lazar can teach him, Amala b'shas matana shigitech. If you told the time, he gives us this is your get. Take out the word she'eno because it's obviously incorrect. It should be like harezeh, that it's a valid get. It is a valid get if as long as he said harezeh gitech. But here could Rabbi Yochanan, I feel him amar b'shas mandar she gitech. Even if he said at the time that he gave the get that it's your get, and he'll get that shemla if neishnayim b'fanei nechtam b'fanei nechtam. It's not a get until he says to her in front of two people b'fanei nechtam b'fanei nechtam. Which is a much greater chiddush, even though Shimon Elazar. So the Gemara doesn't actually want to countenance that. That's too big a chiddush. Why would Rabbi Yochanan go so far as to say you got to take it back and give it again, otherwise the get is possible? There's no Tana holds that way. So says the Gemara, Meis Bersaver. Maybe they wanted to say, although we will reject this, they had having to say that Rabbi Yochanan she'ena isha ne'emenes lomayis kabli these kabalti giti mishluchei bali. The woman is not believed to say, I received my get from my husband's emissaries. Okay, so that's why he made the shliach give it again. Why? Because he wanted to see it take place. A woman is not believed to say, this get came to me from my husband Shluchim. Now, we see here an amazing thing before we go any further, and I don't know how it's going to play out. There's a very long Ridbaz, which stretches for pages and pages here. So I was much too Tosas read, I should say, which is even smaller print than the Ridbaz. So I didn't feel like actually going through it. But it seems from the Yerushalmi holds, at least now and on Omid base, that Eideh Chasima Karti. You don't need witnesses on the Mesiras Haget. The Rabbi Yochanan holds that witnesses are unnecessary. Now, I don't remember. As long as you have witnesses who sign the get, you don't need witnesses on the actual giving of the get. Because here it sounds like The only reason why the woman is not believed to say that her husband gave her a get, but theoretically, even though she's not believed, were she to have been believed, it would be okay even without two witnesses. That's what it seems quite evident here. So I don't know it's going to play out in the next few blocks. Whether, in fact, because that's basically my focus, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Meir. The truth is we really should look in the Bavli. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan says in the Bavli also, they don't need any Kasira. Here it's quite evident that you're not using any Kasira here. There's no witnesses on giving the get, only witnesses on the document itself.
Well, but the get is in her possession.
Right.
It winds up in her soul.
Yeah, but who knows how it got there? We don't have Adam on that.
Why would she believe? I don't understand. Should be believed to say that her husband killed because of a Vilna.
Yeah, but the trial is what death doesn't require Adam doesn't require Adam to sustain it. Gittin and Kedushin require Adam. They require verifying Adam. Not just Adam to determine. That's the basic difference later in the Masechet Kedushin, famous Rashba. Daf Samachein Kedushin says there are two types of Adam. There are Edekim and Birur. There are Adam which are like notaries or verifying witnesses, and there are Adam which are clarifying witnesses or witnesses who testify in court. So even though we don't need on a death, you don't need Edekim. It doesn't need to be notarized. You just have to have Birur, right? Ones who come to court and testify that occurred. But get, you need Edekim to get the Adam validate the document. So the question, which are the validating witnesses? Are they Ede Chasim or Ede Mesira?
I understand that, but it doesn't necessarily mean...
No, but does it have to be Adam present?
They have to be present.
How do you know that?
At the time of the event. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to investigate these Adam later and say, what did you see?
So then we wouldn't say...
Because Edekim Edevirah has nothing to do with the whole issue.
Mm-hmm.
You need them present because it's in kind with whatever the Kedushin, the Gittin, whatever. But that doesn't mean we have to examine them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. But you're saying that they would have to be present at the time that we give the get.
Right. And so if this woman comes to us later and says, I got a get from the Shliach, why should we start?
Okay. Could be. All right. Maybe. So when would the Adam Mesira be?
Oh, we're saying Edi Chasim and Parsi not anyway, right?
Yeah.
So.
They're not necessary. I see here it's in the Bavli as well. Bavli says, Itmar b'fnei kama noslu, in front of how many people do you have to give it? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi China, Chadamai b'fnei shtayim, Chadamai b'fnei shlosha. Either in front of two or three people. And Rabbi Yochanan says it's the one who holds that you have to give it in front of two, right? And the question which the Bavli is going to say, the Bavli says, why do you have to give it in front of two? Because there aren't witnesses normally around to sustain it, so therefore you ensure that there are two witnesses around. But not because of Eidei Mesira, but rather just for the purpose of sustaining the event that's having occurred at the time. It's a convenience thing as opposed to a necessary thing. So I guess obviously Rabbi Yochanan holds that you follow Eidei Chasima, you follow the witnesses which are signed on the get. So that's what it says. Now the Gemara says maybe here the reason why we make it give the get again is because they don't believe the get. We don't believe the woman to say that she got the get, right? Well, at the end, that's not true, though. Then we learn, Vayisha Atma V'Via Gita, a woman herself could bring her own get. V'Chach Lomar, why do we believe her? Well, shouldn't we suspect, Shem Mishluchei Baal Kibla, maybe she received it, from the emissaries of her husband. In other words, maybe she didn't receive it from the emissaries of her husband, right? So it must be that so we see that a woman herself is believed to bring her own get. So weiter, so it can't be Rabbi Yochanan them give over the get because the woman wasn't believed. The woman is believed to say that she got the get from her husband's emissaries. So, Maikadun, what's the reason Taka Rabbi Yochanan made then give the get over again? Good. So, time of the Rabbi Yochanan is in order that two people should see that she's a grusha. Why is that necessary? That's necessary because Rabbi Yochanan shita on Aleph Hamrav. Rabbi Yochanan said, why do we have to say Fanei Nechta b'Fanei Nechta? It says it's a kula. What's the kula? The kula was an incentive for the husband not to come, right? That he'll know that since we did it, but we said Fanei Nechta, he'll know that he's not going to come, and therefore he's going to make sure the get is kosher to begin with, because he knows he's not going to believe him anyway. So all that is to provide, the reason why we need Fanei Nechta is to provide that kol that she's Megureshes, that everybody should know she's Megureshes, and that'll have the fringe benefit that the husband will never come to be married, and even if he comes, of course, it's not going to be believed. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Levi. Now, Rabbi Shimon Levi is the one who said the opposite before. Shimon Levi said the reason I say Fanei Nechta is because the Chutzarts, they're not bucking how to write Gittin properly. That was Rabbi Shimon Levi's perspective. So Asakuf de Rabbi Yochanan and Shimon Levi are Malay Slech Tzorch. He says you don't have to get over again and say Fanei Nechta. He argued Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said you have to give it over and say Fanei Nechta. Shimon Levi argued. So Mor is astounded. That seems to be a contradiction. Rabbi Shimon Levi's opinion. Taman on Alpha, Rabbi Shimon Levi said, Shani Shem Bekim B'Dikduke Gittin. He said it's different. In other words, you have to say Fanei Nechtam when you bring get for Chutzah, because they're not conversant in the halachos of Gittin. Yet here, here you say you don't have to say Fanei Nechtam. Why not? Why do you make the guy go back, take the get back, and say Fanei Nechtam? So Chavrai b'Shem B'Shimon Levi. So the Chavra said in the name of Rabbi Shimon Levi, that's Omar Preishona. When was the Fanei Nechtam essential? Originally, Shaloyu Chaverim B'Tzim B'Chutzlaretz, when the people in Chutzlaretz were Amaratzim. There were no Chaverim there, so nobody knew how to get right Gittin properly. But now that they have people know how to get right Gittin the Chutzlaretz, Biki and they know how to write Gittin. So it says Gemara, wait a minute. Is that the reason why Fanei Nechtam was necessary? Because initially there were no Chaverim and Chutzlaretz. But here we learn our Mishnah, V'amoilich. It says that somebody brings the get from Eretz Yisrael Chutzlaretz has to say Fanei Nechtam as well. And even you say that originally there are no Chaverim Chutzlaretz, are not Mitzuim Eretz Yisrael, we're Chaverim in Eretz Yisrael, so why do somebody take a get from Eretz Yisrael Chutzlaretz? Why is he have to say Fanei Nechtam? So it says more interesting answer, Sholach Lachlo Begittin B'Chutzlaretz. In order not to draw distinction between different Gittin and Chutzlaretz, they made a blanket principle that no matter whether the get is going from Chutzlaretz to Eretz Yisrael or from Eretz Yisrael to Chutzlaretz, we always require Fanei Nechtam. Okay? So it says, Me'atav, that's the case, maybe Mi Medina Sayam. Let's say the other way around. Let's say somebody who brings a get from Chutzlaretz, internally in Eretz Yisrael. You don't say Fanei Nechtam, you bring from one region in Eretz Yisrael to another. So let's say Lo Pluk, let's say not to draw a distinction, that people bring get from Chutzlaretz to Eretz Yisrael shouldn't have to say Fanei Nechtam either. Right? In order not to be distinguished between various different types of Gittin in Eretz Yisrael. Let's say every get in Eretz Yisrael, don't say Fanei Nechtam. So it says the Gemara in Maikadun, how to respond to that. So it says the Gemara, come, that's a klotz kasha. Machmirim b'kav ibnei achomer. We say Lo Plug to be machmir in an issue area where we could otherwise be lenient because of the area which is stringent. Meaning if there was a possibility of not saying Fanei Nechtam, but in what scenario you do have to say Fanei Nechtam, so in order to make it consistent, we're more machmir. But we're never consistent l'kula. That's not what Judaism is about. We're never makel across the board. Machmir, yes, not makel. No such thing, right? So the aim of killing b'chorim ne'akal. We don't say low plug and downgrade from a chumah to a kula. We have to have priorities straight. Okay? So therefore for bringing it from Eretz Yisrael, of course they have to say Fanei Nechtam, despite the fact that in Eretz Yisrael internally don't say Fanei Nechtam. Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Shimon ben Barabba said, Madam Rabbi Shimon Levi, that Rabbi Shimon Levi said, you don't have to give it back and say Fanei Nechtam over again. It's only the Shabbat, it's only B'diavad. In other words, where you can't do it. But certainly after Rabbi Shimon Levi Moida, but certainly Rabbi Shimon Levi says that even as Manazeh, you have to say Fanei Nechtam, because who knows, maybe there are places where they're still not Baki L'Shma, or they're going to go back and not be Baki L'Shma, or Baki in the other Tukei Gittin, so therefore, even as Manazeh, you still have to preferentially say Fanei Nechtam. Okay? Rabbi Bob, B'Shem Rabbi Zira, B'Shem Abba Barachana said, Shnaim Sheviu Saget, 2 people brought the get, Eino Tzarech Shlomar Fanei Nechtam. 2 people brought the get as 2 witnesses. They don't say Fanei Nechtam. Because obviously, this is, as Korbanei points out, he says that normally we say, there might not be Eidim around, and here we have Eidim, right? There are Eidim who came but to get. So therefore, the Eidim Mitzuim L'kaimo, the Eidim can sustain the get for us, and therefore they don't say Fanei Nechtam. Rabbi Yossi ben Yossi B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Tzorich. They do have to break, they do have to say Fanei Nechtam. Now, actually, I didn't notice this before, but it seems to be a contradiction of Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says the whole issue is because of Eidim, right? And therefore, here where the Eidim are present, you brought to Eidim, why should they have to say Fanei Nechtam? It shouldn't be necessary. So now I'm thinking that maybe it's because of Rabbi Yochanan's svara that because Rabbi Yochanan's svara that it's because of kol, right? We want a kol to go out on her that she's megureshes. So therefore, we if there are 2 Eidim around, even if there are 2 Eidim around, they have to say Fanei Nechtam, in order to produce that kol of megureshes. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's what I would say off the. In other words, again, what's bothering me is that Rabbi Yochanan is the one who said that the whole problem is because you won't have Eidim around. Well, that's not true. I got mixed up. What I just said the last couple minutes, ignore. Try very hard to ignore. Because I was mixing on the Bavli Shita with the Yerushalmi Shita. The Bavli says, why does Rabbi Yochanan say you need to have Fanei Nechtam? Not just because of the Eidim factor, but rather also because of the deterrent to the husband, that he shouldn't come to be Ma'arer. So therefore it makes sense to require Fanei Nechtam when you're dealing with a potentially difficult husband in order to prevent him from ever coming to be Ma'arer. Even if there are 2 witnesses. Yes, perhaps these witnesses will be around, but we'd rather not have the headache of the husband coming. So therefore we preempt that by having them say Fanei Nechtam, even when there are 2 witnesses. Now, who asked Moshe this get? And even he himself who brought the get, take out the word Eino, Mashbiach and Shar Teretz Yisrael, take it out. Tzorech no love V'nei Shnaim. He too has come from 2 people. Kidei lachziko grush V'nei Shnaim, in order that we should be able to assume that she's divorced in front of 2 people. Why is that necessary? Obviously, again, in order to bring out the kol that she's a grusha. Okay? Now, Nasan Lagita. What if now we have a couple of interesting cases. Nasan Lagita, he gave her a get. Naflo Mimena. And then he took it from her. Vishlicho Layam Lanar. Toss it into the sea or into the river. Lacharzman, a few days later, whatever it was, Amar Lo, he says, I fooled you. Near Cholakaya. It was actually a blank piece of paper I give you, not a get. Or Shtar Pruaya was a redeemed document. So in that case, he's trying to parcel the get. He's trying to render the get parcel. So here's Rabbi Yochanan's advantage comes in, the call of the get having been given in front of two people. Lo hakol mimenu lepostla. He does not have the capacity to render the get parcel. Why is that? Obviously because it was huchsuku b'fnei shnayim. Right? So it's huchsuku b'fnei shnayim was done in front of two people, so we assume as a get, the burden upon him, proof is upon him to prove it's not a get. Just making such a claim is not valid, not sufficient to cancel the get. Okay?
And when they gave it the get, did they say before I left her?
Mm-hmm. It's got to be the case.
So that in itself would...
No, because here the husband himself gave the get. But he giving the get in front of two people also would make a hulsuku. That's what we're saying. In other words, either the shluchim or the husband himself giving the get. That would be the same thing. Okay? Rebu Merchia said, and that's what Gemara's about to say actually. I didn't make that up. Gemara's about to say it. Rebu Merchia, boy, you couldn't Rabbi Zera. Rebu Merchia asked Rabbi Zera, who ain't no postal? If he can't postal, me postal, meaning, why is he not believed? Why could you believe him to say that the get is no good? Amar, he said, since there were two people there, Lo Kol Mimenu Posel, doesn't have the capacity to postle her. Okay? What if he gave her a get? Ashchina beget posel. That was a fascinating case. If he gave it a get, then it was found to be a get posel. So Kafune, then they compelled him b'yoyev l'chorin, and he gave it another one. Now, the Or Sameach talks about this. What right do they have to demand him to give another one? The Meshech Pnei Moshe here actually says that once he gave a get posel, he's required to give her another get. We can compel him, because normally we don't compel on Gittin, right? But here we can compel because since you already gave her a get posel, we compel. The Kohen tosses in that it's only if he's a Kohen. Because if he's a Kohen, he can't live with her anyway once he gave one get. So if he gave one get and then it got lost, so we compel to her another get because he can't live with her anyway and be suffering. But the Pnei Moshe sounds like it's a universal principle. Once you reveal that you are interested in giving a get, if the get gets lost, we make you write another one. Okay, it's not so poshut that that's the case. Okay, the Torah Sameach says not so simple that a person can paskin that way.
It's simple because his intentions were to divorce the wife, so he...
yeah, but that's question whether...
he didn't do it.
Right, but that's question whether on his intentions we can then enforce him. Maybe the fact that the get was possible saved him from that.
It's a technicality.
Okay, but it's a big technicality. You can get off a parking ticket on a technicality like that. I mean, it's a big technicality, right? Right, law, it's a technical code. Okay? I got off a parking ticket just the other day, and it took a long time for me to get a response. I got a parking ticket because I got a parking ticket for a geo prison. So I wrote them that I don't have a geo prison. It doesn't say the word geo anywhere on my car. It's a Chevy prison. And I got off on that one. Because that's the law. If they get wrong I read this somewhere, and it said if they get wrong any information in the ticket, then you get off on that. Right. So I got off on that. Because the cop, once upon a time, for many years, they were called Geos. Then Chevy changed the name. I don't think they have the nameplate Geo anymore. So I got off the...
So did you submit a photograph that this is said Chevy on it?
I submitted my registration. My registration says a Chevy prison. So, right? Works.
As long as it works.
Yes. So, in any event, I read that years ago. What? What?
I'll have to do it for my next parking ticket. I don't have a Geo prison or a Chevy prison. I'll say it anyway.
Now, I read that years ago. I think when I was still in New York, if they get anything wrong, if they get your license number wrong, whatever they write wrong information, then you get off on that. So that's a technicality, but that's the way the law works. Okay, it's big Judaism as well. So says Gemara. So that's a shot. But look, the Pnei Moshe says, like you're saying, right, that we compel. So Asul Zukum Rabbanon came to Achsharun. That they said that said second that this is okay. The second get divorces her. But be that as it may, lo chayim my law call me man post law. How can they possible first get? Then we just say you don't have the capacity to possible to get. So it says blochach psul. He doesn't have the capacity to claim it's possible. We can't tell it's possible. But hacha, this is a case of huchach psul. This is a case where everybody could tell that the get was possible to begin with. And this is ka'ador like the following case. Now this next case is very, very cryptic. Very, very difficult to understand. Okay? So I'm just going to say it the way I think it should be, but there's no guarantee that I'm right about this. Okay? China braid Ravasi. China, son of Ravasi, according to Gourmet, have a Masuk, and he was dying. According to others, it means have a Mason. He was in a place named Mason. Vizar Kita Litasei. So he tossed to get at his wife. Amar Lei said, Harigitech. Here's your get. So this is all of a sudden. Now, I don't even know if there are 8 in there. It's very unclear. Again, obviously, Yerushalmi will say, I don't even know if there are 8 in there. So Tzavchas, she shouted, right? She was shocked. Va'alu Megirta, her neighbors came up. They came upstairs to see what's going on, you know? Chatve, Mina. Now here it becomes unclear who grabbed from whom. So I'm going to learn the husband grabbed back the get from his wife. Then, he gave her a blank piece of paper. So we never actually saw the get. All we saw is the blank piece of paper. We know he gave her something, he took it back, and then he gave her a blank piece of paper. Whether it was a blank piece of paper the first time, or a get the first time, we do not know. Okay? So, Asa was a Kum Rabbanan. This case came in front of Rabbanan. The Chashun, and they suspected that they required him to give a second get. Why they required him to give a second get? Because it seems to me that because whatever he gave her, the neighbor saw him giving it to her. Okay, the neighbor who ran upstairs saw the paper exchanging hands. Now, yes, it's true that then later on when we looked at the paper, the only paper we saw was a blank piece of paper. But Lamaisa, something exchanged hands under the guise of being a get. So therefore it kicks into what we said before, Huchsaka Grusha, and therefore that we assume that there was an actual desire to give a get, and therefore we write him and then we compel him to write a second get in order to actually divorce her. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Who's the one who's machzik it to be a valid get? This neighbor, who's a woman. Didn't Rabbi Yasa say name Rabbi Yochanan? Nivda kashem. If the name, meaning the name of Grusha, was checked out, actually Grusha or Mekudesh. In other words, if there's a rumor in the city that this woman is a Grusha, this woman is a Kudesh, and they checked out, but Nivsa Pinoshim Piktanim, and it came out that it was women and children who produced this rumor, Batal Hashem, we cancel the rumor. So here too, who's the one who saw the get being given? A woman neighbor. What are we going to believe her? Probably even an Eid Echad wouldn't believe that. Says, right? Says more notes, different. Tam Lahuz Karashem, there, the name was not mentioned, meaning we don't know precisely what occurred. Bramhacho Huz Karashem get. Here, the guy, as he was giving the get, said, here is your get. So therefore, here it's much more of a legitimate call, even in front of a woman. Because he used the name get, and she says he's used the term get, that's enough to make it hulsukum. Maybe those who say Imamar get kosher hoya. So it's talking about the im is a little bit funny. It's where, but not if, but rather he said it's a get kosher. And once she shouted, and the neighbor came, So he grabbed back whatever he gave her and gave her a blank piece of paper. But Lamaisa, he actually used the words get kosher, and the fact he used the words get kosher make a valid get. Okay, but I say this is as far as I prepared. I told you it's a half an hour worth of material. I'm embarrassed because Lamaisa and Gittin we should do much more than 2 blot a night. But we can try to wing it now for a while, or we can call it an evening. What? Yeah. Every vote? We can try winging it to Ahmed Bays and then, okay, because it's been talking not very far. Okay, so in order to wing it, we're going to do this because I did look ahead a little bit, but I didn't actually learn it up. We're gonna do an actual Gillian Ephraim inside, which will be the first time we've ever done that. So if you open to the back of the Gittin, if you continue beyond the end of the Masechta, a new series of pages begins with page Aleph. Okay, after page Samech, you have then again page Aleph. So go to page, it actually is not paginated anymore, but after page 28, you'll have the Gillian Ephraim. After 28. There you have it. Okay? The Gillian Ephraim is my favorite Achron on the Yerushalmi, actually, or one of my favorite Achron, not the most favorite. It's actually pretty late. At the time when they printed the Yerushalmi, Vilna Yerushalmi in the 1920s, he was still alive. Ephraim, Hagol Mar Ephraim Dov Akoin Lap, based in Kila Verzblu, I don't know, anyway. So he's actually a pretty late fellow since he was alive in the 20s. Achron, right. But, therefore he's Chaviv. Okay, so in any event, keep one finger on the Gemara, and one finger on the Gillian Ephraim, which is the first column in the Gillian Ephraim, really the third paragraph down. You see that Daf Dalin Rav Shom Rabbi Yirmiyah boy? Okay? So Rabbi Yirmiyah, so let's read first one, then see how the Gillian Ephraim changes it. Rabbi Yirmiyah bo, Rabbi Yirmiyah asked, Kosv Eretz Yisrael, they wrote the get in Eretz Yisrael, the Chosm B'chutz Laretz, and signed the Chutz Laretz. V'achlidna lo b'chutz Laretz, he went to give it to her in Chutz Laretz. V'lo matzah b'chutz Laretz, he didn't find her Chutz Laretz. U'ba matzah b'Eretz Yisrael. Okay, he wrote the get in Yerushalmi. He had it signed in Chicago. He went to give it to her in Chicago, could not find her in Chicago, went back to Yerushalayim and found her there. Okay, that's the case according to the Gemara itself. Let's look at Gillian Ephraim. Gillian Ephraim says, boy, he learns it so far the same way. Okay, so the chule means that so far so good. That's all that he accepts the premise of the Gemara till now. So in this case, going back to the Gemara, then we say, then in this case he actually doesn't say what he has to say. In this case, we assume, however, he has to say "Fonei nechtav" or "Fonei nechtam," right? Because this way. I'm sorry, scratch that. Why? Because even though you wrote it in Eretz Yisrael, remember, according to Yerushalmi, at least till now, the chasimos are what activate the get. And where are the chasimos? Where are the signatures of the Eidim placed upon the get? Chicago, right. So therefore, you have to say for the nechtav. Avol nechtav be'eretz Yisrael. Now, here's the Gillian Ephraim kicks in. Here it says, Avol nechtav be'eretz Yisrael, nechtam be'eretz Yisrael, nechtam be'eretz Yisrael. So the first be'eretz Yisrael here, which should be b'chutz la'aretz. So if it's nechtam if it's written in Eretz Chutz Laretz and signed in Eretz Yisrael, so where does the signature take place? In Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that's critical. And then you went to give it to her in Chutz La'aretz. So in that case, we say v'lo mitzvah, even though you went to give it to the Chutz La'aretz, v'lo mitzvah, you didn't find a Chutz La'aretz, uva mitzvah be'eretz Yisrael, and you found in Eretz Yisrael. You don't have to say Fanei Nechtam and Fanei Nechtam. So if those written in Chutz La'aretz, and he went to look for in Chutz La'aretz, since Lamais was signed in Eretz Yisrael and delivered in Eretz Yisrael, there's no need to say Fanei Nechtam and Fanei Nechtam. Now look back in the frame again. He says something which is which I've said for a long time, maintained for a long time, and have never actually seen anybody quote before, but you've heard this from me, just on my own basis. He says, it said Rabbi boy, right? Which normally means a question. But here, Brian says, a Perusho boy, Kimo Amar. Here, boy is the statement, right? Right. Kamosh Kosev, a Perish Baal, Sefer Charedim, Bivrachos, Perikaf, Aloch Aleph. I didn't use the Charedim when we learned Brachos. Rabbi Bar Rabbi Bun said, "Hi, boy, Lav Loshen Shelahu." On this, I guess that's who used the Loshen of boy, Rabbi Bar Rabbi Bun. Hi, boy, Lav Loshen Shelahu. El Omer Dover B'Pshitas V'Yesh Kayotzi Bo Harbe B'Yushalmi. There are many cases, times where boy in Yerushalmi actually is a statement and not a question. Okay, so the bottom line is that it goes by where the signatures were put on the get, as long as the get is being given in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, it goes by where the signatures are done, not by where he traveled to, where he intended to give it. If the signatures are in Eretz Yisrael and she's found in Eretz Yisrael, so then you, despite any intervals in the meantime, you assume that you don't say Fanei Nechtam, Fanei Nechtam.
Signatures in Eretz Yisrael, if it's given outside.
No, they have to say Fanei Nechtam, Fanei Nechtam. Because if that's Molich, that's called Molich. Taking a get from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz, it was the low plug. Anytime Chutz is involved. But if you could skip over Chutz, even if you travel with the whole Chiddush is, if you travel with the get from Eretz Yisrael back and forth, he doesn't have to say Fanei Nechtam, Fanei Nechtam. Okay? Now, Nasim Lagita, V'chaka Chomer Lo, Tizkeli Chatzeri Shabako. He gave her a get, okay? And afterwards he said that may my chotzer, my courtyard in Akko, be acquire it. Now let's see what this means. What? Yeah, so why does it make a difference? Where is it? Yeah. What? Let's look at the Chasam Sofer from the bottom here. Chasam Sofer all the way in the bottom, it's very hard to read, but let's see if we can read it. Nasan las Gita, V'char Amar Tizri Chater Shabako. You see it on the very bottom? So, Pekavanasam, the case is Amar Shliach. The Shliach said to Laisha, to the woman, Kligi Teich, take her get. V'amran, she said, Yiz Kali Chatzei Bako, put it into my courtyard in Akko, because one of the ways it's going to see later in the Masech, they're giving a get is by putting it into a courtyard, into a reshus. You don't have to actually put it into his hands. So Tzarechim Fanei Nechtam, Fanei Nechtam. He still has to give the same Fanei Nechtam, Fanei Nechtam. Perush means it's talking about beget shenechta v'nechtam be'eretz Yisrael. It was written and signed Eretz Yisrael. I can't read the next three words. And then Matzah Isha, he found the woman. Can anybody read those words, or do you also have them rubbed out? You have them not so rubbed out? Oh, that's good. Very good. So it said, and the agent took it to Akko and did not find the woman. Okay? Vashliach should be Vashliach Holicho took it to Akko. V'lo Matzah. He didn't find the woman. And he tossed it into her courtyard. Shabako. And he went to the Eretz Yisrael. And they found the woman. And he said to her, go get your get. Klomar bako, meaning inako. Right? She said, I don't have to go. Yizkeli chatzei rishon ba'ako. My chotzer nako will be zoicha for me to get. So Kamash tells Abi shall get nechtav and nechtam Eretz Yisrael, even though the get was signed and sealed in Eretz Yisrael, and now at the end of the process they're both standing in Eretz Yisrael. But nevertheless, we come since even though he never met up with her in Chutz La'aretz, he met up with her in Eretz Yisrael. But since he went via her Chutz and Akko, okay, so it's going to tell us how far we're going. Again, the shliach got to get in Eretz Yisrael. We took it to Akko, couldn't find her, tossed it into her courtyard. Then he comes back into Eretz Yisrael, finds her, because Akko was right on the border, and she said, "Oh, it's fine that you threw it into my courtyard." So we still say Fanei Nechtam, because Lamaisa it went to Chutz La'aretz. Okay, so that's the case. So Amar Rabbi Chanina Nases Kemi showed, and Rabbi China explains this. I just read the case over again. 5 lines on the bottom. Los Lagita gave her again v'charka chomra, and she said, which doesn't mean he actually gave it to her, but rather, he, in the process of giving her a get, he put it into her courtyard, and then she said, let that work. Arnachin says, Nasis kamishoisa yodo aruka. Right? Its zip, her hand was very long. And that's the concept of chotzer. Chotzer is mishum yodo. Right? It's actually sugin the Bavli and Bav Metzia, I think, not in Gittin. But the chotzer is a chotzer mishum shliach, a chotzer mishum yad. So chotzer your agent or chotzer your hand. And we say a chotzer is like your hand. It's your extension of your hand. Okay. So Voshitas Yado Utlaso, she extended it and took it. She took it in Chutz La'aretz, right? Shema in Tzarech Lomar Fanei Nechtam, don't you say Fanei Nechtam for the case, because she extended, it's as if she extended her hand and took it in Chutz La'aretz, and taking Chutz La'aretz, you have to say Fanei Nechtam. Rabbi Abba said, Man Omar Delo. The low here was probably like Do'ela. Who said, he says, who told you? Well, I'm not sure how to read this word below. But he said, who told you so? Meaning that if he's standing in Eretz Yisrael and extending at the Chutz La'aretz, who says you have to say B'fanei Nechtam? You're assuming that the Chutz and Chutz La'aretz, and like you extended her hand to Chutz La'aretz, so you have to say B'fanei Nechtam. Who says? Maybe since she's planted in Eretz Yisrael, the fact that her yad is in Chutz La'aretz, especially this halachic can, which is her extension of Chutzer, does not require you to say Fanei Nechtam. Okay? But that's basically the Gemara just leaves it and doesn't actually answer the question. Okay, we got to Amud Beis. We'll say that we can stop here and we'll continue on with this next.